Hey, good afternoon, YouTube. Going to be a video response here I want to make. I don't know how long it's going to be. I'm going to try to keep it short, but because really the video on VR2 is really what you need to go see, but I'd like to put a few comments out there. John, our host over at The Prepared Mind, put out a very impassioned video yesterday that if you haven't seen it, I'll put it in the box below, obviously, and please go watch it, comment, discuss. Very good video by him that gets the point across. Get out there and prepare now. The crux of it being that even good people are going to die, as the title of the video in SHTF. He gets across pretty well. And the biggest part of that is the good people that don't prepare, and even good people that are preparing that are not mentally prepared, was one of the points that I want to hit on. And like he says, the prepared mind, mental preparedness is a big part of the overall function. You have to be mentally prepared to go into those situations. And he talks about specifically the beginning of SHTF and being mentally prepared for what is going to initiate it, and being there to initiate action when the SHTF does happen, that you're not caught in that lull between it happening and processing the fact, transitioning from normal circumstances to the SHTF circumstances mentally. That gap, that thought gap, is going to be one of the big windows where people are going to die that shouldn't. They're good people. They've tried to do all the right things. They've got things stored up, etc., yada, yada, yada. But yet they get overwhelmed by the situation. It outpaces your thought. What you would call, if you watch Pastor Joe Fox, the OODA loop, which others have addressed, but having being able to observe, orient, and decide and act quickly. And SHTF, it could come upon us quickly. It may not even be you realize it's happened yet. That goes back to the talk about, like, when the power goes out, how quickly are you able to decide, like, is this a short-term thing or a long-term thing? How quickly do you put into action a plan? If you have a fire, a flood, how quickly can you put action to your plan? I mean, you look at Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and how fast those things came through. How quickly people able to orient and decide and act to get out. Because it was a very rare event. It was SHTF full on. I mean, look at that Gatlinburg situation. You see videos of people driving through the fire, cars catching on fire, driving down the road. Several, I think in the 20s number of deaths. So being able to observe, orient, and decide, and so that good people do not die. And a lot of that goes into training, and John kind of addresses that, and how, in the military you're trained to process things. He talks a lot about cops in that video too, but the mental thought process that you have to go through to prepare yourself for that. You have to put yourself in scenarios, and those scenarios have to develop into training, and that training has to develop and provide you be able to base your action off of when the incident happens. We back in the day, we would put ourselves in scenarios, and one of the selection processes scenarios, a common one that was always put in that, what is your mental mindset and how do you process? It's just to test people on what are they thinking, and how do they prioritize what they would do, just as you sit there in a room and you talk, and that thinking about it at that point allows you to take the next step. Okay, what would I do in action, and getting into the training of that. One of those scenarios is we would often question guys, younger guys especially, that are coming through the selection process, on the incident. You basically rehash the incident where the SAS got compromised by the Shepherd Boy in Iraq back in the first Gulf War. Your team leader, and your team is compromised. You're fairly certain they were compromised by this young shepherd boy who saw your position given away. You're not positive. He just kind of looked your way and walked by. What would you do? It's just an open-ended, what would you do? And you get a range of questions. Some of them are break contact E&E. go to an extraction point, get out of the area, into mission. Some are, take the boy out, shoot him where he, lays. And there's all repercussions for all of that. You got to take it all the way through the thought process of, well, if you shoot the kid, family's going to be missing them, they're going looking for him with more people, on down the line. Then what? Then your position's still compromised. You're still going to have to break contact. Some people talk about, tying him up and moving observation positions and other things. And you got to go through that whole thought process of, okay, action necessitates another action, on down the line. There's repercussions for all of that. And in thinking about SHTF, it's going to be the same thing. And it's particularly what John talks about. If you're confronted in the initiation of basically what he's talking about is martial law, it sounds like, and that law enforcement officer comes up to order you to do something that is immoral, and he's already made his decision that he's given you a directive, and if you don't follow it, he's going to do X, Y, and Z. He's already went through that process. He's advanced through action, action, action. Whereas you either are not aware of the action of things are about ready to hit the fan, or they have already, and you're caught off guard. And what do you do? How do you get through that? And being able to be aware of your surroundings, people's body language, people's keys, being able to quickly think through how do you delay and distract until you can get yourself out of that position, is an example of something you would want to think through in that scenario that he brings up. But you want to do these things now. What kind of delaying questions can you ask without raising suspicion of, okay, that's not a, officer tells you to drive your car off to the side and step out of your car and empty all its contents or whatever. Something totally off the wall that has never happened, and you don't know why he would do this, and it's obviously something that's changed. Being able to ask the questions to delay until you can get enough information to make a better action decision. Because like John says, very quick to go from pulling the gun to shooting, and he talks about the training aspect of reaction training, so that you react quickly. But scenarios like that, moral decision making, to quickly, so that you can think about what your options are quickly in any given scenario. Whether it's to break contact, plow through a roadblock, you see some random stranger that's blocking the road, totally seems unusual, immediately stop and back up, don't ask questions, or what? Think through those scenarios. You've been down the same road for 20 years and all of a sudden something's really out of the ordinary. What is your action in different scenarios? And, depending on your capabilities as well. How capable are you at that time? Do you have friends with you that could help bolster your response, if you will? So I would just say, tactical scenarios, if you will, of thought, going through the thought process of, if I do X in this scenario, what's the next steps down beyond that? Because if you obviously react with force in certain scenarios, the second action after that is further down the line, and that's what most people don't get to is, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to, take them out. Well, the next action and next step after that necessitates other actions, movement, communications, or otherwise. So, always think through your different options now, different scenarios now, so that, like John talks about, it doesn't come upon you to where the good people, do die because they've been overwhelmed with the thought process too quickly. So as always, live in the yellow and be aware of your surroundings helps you get through that quickly, and then just being trained and throwing yourself through different weird scenarios can help you as well. So just my 2 cents to him. Good video. I'm sure he can expand upon this in another video, but his whole channel is about mental preparation, so there you go. So shout out to John. Y'all be good out there. We've got some excellent weather coming through. This whole area was blanketed with snow this morning, but the back end of the storm is warm and bringing in a little bit of rain, and it's definitely warmed up today. Unfortunately, otherwise you'd be looking at a field of snow. But it looks like it's still hitting the mountains pretty good with snow up high. So that's all good. for springtime runoff and water and such. But y'all be good out there. Continue to monitor. We got earthquakes off the coast of California, tsunami warnings in Hawaii, all kinds of stuff that you just always got to be aware of what's going on that could affect you on down the line. But stay alert, stay alive, live free.